Hello, you Arcos out there. How you doing? Welcome to part two. Joined by Curtis. I wasn't going to leave you all hanging after that because you'll all be like, "Oh, Porky, you shouldn't have done that." So, but I like to finish it off at end. I ain't got a tech guy no more to piece it all in, have I? He's always busy. Right, go on. You were saying about that story, the Eddie Hills story. I can't hear you, mate. Hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. Have I pressed the wrong button? Hang on, hang on. Let's have a look.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better, mate. Yeah, go on. It must. Yeah, it's you.
No.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even a good story, mate. I was just
Oh,
saying,
a crap story. Oh, what a
yeah,
gas story.
it's definitely not worth a new Zoom. But I was just saying, obviously, I've been in his presence a few times. I've boxed on a few of his shows, and
Yeah.
always found him. He's good company. He's
Yeah.
charming. Yeah, he could make you believe anything, Eddie. He's do you know us up north? We're a little bit different, aren't we? We see through it a little bit more, don't we? You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. He had a little pop at me. He says, "Oh, look at you. You're like I had this red ski coat on. I'm about 28 and a half stone, like probably 29. I'd had a fry up that morning. It was Brooks Sanchenko presser, and you're a big lad, aren't you? I bet you eat a lot of fry ups, and and I'm like, you know what? I just had a fry up, and I thought, you know what? I fucking like you. And as people were coming in, and he were greeting him, and he's full of himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he had something to say about everybody, what they wore, how they look, if they were overweight, if they weren't, this and that. And I just stood back and I looked at him, and then I seen him telling his jokes,
Yeah.
and he were making it like a kid in a sweet shop. And I thought, you're that annoying, in the class at school. Though, I mean, don't forget, right? Obviously, I was involved in pool years ago, and I remember a tournament, and I saw that Robbo, who was the driver. I think he turned up with Jimmy White, and this limo. It were the registration on it were the 147S, and Jimmy White got out, and I thought that's that Robbo then, isn't it? Now, and then somebody told me that that's the limo that used to take young little Edward to school. No, little Lord Fauntleroy. So listen, his dad's a graft. I've got more respect for his dad than him. I once sent his dad an handmade Damascus knife. Cost me a lot of money, it did. And he still got it to this day, Barry, and it's a fishing knife. Good check. And the reason I did it is because it was handmade in Dagenham, where he's from. And they sent me some tickets. I had some tickets for a couple of shows. They were all right with me. I say a Damascus knife, but I've got respect for that more for him than Eddie. But for me, he had everything done for him. You know what I mean? And a few times, I remember I got an email off him. Let's see what minute. But when Carl Frampton left him, right, that was the first time. And ask anybody, they'll tell you this. It was the first time he'd ever had summer just not go right for him in boxing. And he might tell us all. He didn't mention it in his book, but he might tell us all one day when was the first time that you really got cheesed off your boxing and you got a little bit upset and down. And it was when Frampton left him. That was the first chink I ever saw in his armour. I thought, you know what? You're not Mr. Cockshaw now, are you? It was just that little chink.
Well,
Although
I think from
he's
when
had it on
Eddie
the plate,
came in.
he's had it on the plate all the way through.
Well, I think from when Eddie first came into boxing, um, he had it all plain sailing. The timing's everything, isn't it? He came in a great era, got Kell Brook, Carl Froch, Landon Anthony Joshua, got the Sky deal. So everything he built himself a lovely foundation from that. And like you said, I've been in his company a few times, and he's very charming, and he's good to be around, and he does leave you walking out the room on cloud nine, even if you know he's lying
He
to you.
elevates you. It can make you feel special. And that's
Yeah.
why he shakes all fans' hands at show because they want to go again and shake his hand. But getting back to run-ins, him and Dennis have had some dudes. Obviously, when I worked for Dennis, Jamie McDonald left him, didn't he? Right, Jamie
Yeah.
McDonald left. And they were back and forwards. When I started with Dennis, they were all going on behind the scenes.
That's
Legal.
when Dennis done his conkers on that show in Donny, innit?
Yeah, Dennis done 300 grand on that keep mode. Keep. He had Chris Smedley driving around Doncaster Town Centre in this. I'm not sure if it were a Mondeo or something. And they had this big antennae on top of it, and it, you know, one of them that go, vote Labour.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense. Well, they had Chris Smedley driving around Doncaster Town Centre going, Damon McDonnell versus Seeger, keep vote tonight. You know, the doors open at 6 p.m., you know, all that. But yeah, Dennis did his conkers. But when McDonnell left, Dennis, he had 13 fights with Dennis. He was British, Commonwealth, European, and a world champion with Dennis. And then obviously he went to Eddie. Jamie McDonnell did well, and he's a nice kid. But I thought that was sneaky. But when they went to IBF convention with Dennis, Asif Valley, Francis, one, you know, the Bricktops lad, I think Gary Shaw, Lou DeBella, a few of us. And Eddie what nuking up block then, wasn't he? You know, for them sort of dudes. You know, he'd not been promoting that long. I think it was his first IBF convention he'd gone to anyway. And then Eddie, the brass neck on him, because you can imagine Big Ron, can't you, at the bar holding coke. Big Ron, if you ever want to find him, he's always at a bar, isn't he? Dennis said, Eddie bowled in, and everybody's like, oh, who's just walked in? Well, Dennis, you can imagine, had a drink. So Dennis went straight up to him, and obviously he towers over Dennis, doesn't he? But Dennis can have a little bit of a doing. He's a rough one, isn't he? So Dennis has gone, do you know you? You're a cook taking eggs out my nest, you cuckoo, or something. You know, one of them phrases that there's English and there's Denlish, isn't there? And put it on him, and says, me and you outside. So Dennis has gone and tried to take him outside. Eddie's gone, yeah, get your hands off me. I must warn you, I'm very good. Dennis has gone, yeah, come here, you. Anyway, they won't. He ended up tagging around on boardwalk in Atlantic City with them all night, and I says, oh, you want hugging and kissing him at the end of the night, where you big Ron? So Eddie obviously put some flannel on him, but if that were my fighter, and because then he couldn't get his investment back, could he? Because of Eddie. If that had been my fighter, we would have been at it in probably mine going up boardwalk. So
was
front, Tanny, he's got some front. We have to give him that.
Was Eddie not concerned about Gav McDonnell's loyalty then?
Gav McDonnell, Jamie McDonnell.
Was he not concerned about the loyalty thing then?
No, that's it. This is what he keeps going on about loyalty and that. And look what he did to Dennis. Dennis put £300,000, but don't worry, we'll get it all back. So he put all that money in, but he wanted to get it back because that was his investment. 13 fights, British, Commonwealth, European, and world champion. Not one loss. You know what I mean? It was Pete Bell that took him there. You know the late Pete Bell with Jim Screw at Lindholm Prison.
Yeah.
Pete Bell took him there, and I think he were 8-2-1 or something. I think he'd had a draw and 2 losses, but they were only splits. Do you know what I mean? He had a good record, and he said, "I think you can do something with him, Dennis." And made Pete Bell rest in peace. I actually went to his deathbed with Dennis just before he died, a couple of days before. I went to his house in Hatfield, but Pete Bell took him to Dennis, and like I said, they went on a great run him and McDonnell, the 13 fights, but. Eddie goes on about loyalty. What about that loyalty then, Curt? You know,
that's what I mean. That was a point I was making. There is no loyalty. They've all shafted each other left, right, and centre a million times over. So when it happens to you, don't cry about it. Just get on with it.
Like Gary Shaw pulled a few strokes with Dennis, and they were sat in like I said that night on boardwalk, and I'm like, how could you sit with that fat? And I thought he lifted your leg and. Bricktop had him for 25 bags of something with Clinton, some expenses for the Carl Zaggy fight because he started the camp and he didn't pay the money. They ended up flipping a coin for this 25, him and Dennis. And Dennis lost. Bricktop went, go on and flip the coin and he lost. So, but I said, he wouldn't have given you 50 anyway if you'd have lost, if you'd have won it. But then again, we ended up taking Sheedy to fight Tommy Langford on a Brickford show. And I was like, how can you work with these after what's gone on? And it's the nature of the business, isn't it? And once you understand it, I couldn't really understand it at first. I was like, oh, God, who is it's coming? Certain people, I'm not going to mention too much here, but certain people, I go up to that office, and you've been there many times, they walk in, I'd be thinking, what's happening here? And I know my role up there, and I'd stay out that way. Oh, do you need a drink or out and sit down? I'd be thinking, and you could sense atmospheres. But you've got to do business with people, haven't you? I just couldn't get my head around that, Curt. I couldn't.
Well, if you don't, Russ, if you won't do business with people you don't like, then your fighters are going to suffer.
Yeah, your fighters are going to start. I mean, look at Peter Fury and you. They don't really want to work with Bricktop, do they really? But they might have to down the line. They might get.
Well, he's got the whole heavyweight division on lockdown as Frank. So
you see where I'm coming from, and I think that makes that political spat that over the Parker fight, and his style, and that he's not engaging on social media and he's pulling out left, right, and centre and injured. I think all that into the pot, and I think it's a bad recipe for you with that. You see where I'm coming from? But it's boxing, it. Sometimes you've got to work with people you don't like, and I had problems. I had a lot of problems with that one.
No, yeah, you've got to do. You know, you don't. And do you know what? It don't matter if you don't like each other. What does that matter? Yeah. If you can do a deal together, then you can do it, you know, amicably, and the deal's right for everybody. It don't matter whether you like people or not.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a cup of tea with them after the deal. You can do the deal, sit down. You can do it over a beer, over a coffee, however you want. Over email, you can do the deal. But if the deal works for
after parties, aren't they, Curt?
Yeah, that best ones. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Sam Jones has come out. He's come out into the defence of Anthony Joshua and the Wilder fight. Just want to ask you, do you agree on that?
What's he said? I don't know what he said.
He still thinks it's a good fight. It should have happened years ago, but Anthony Joshua still got it. Blah blah, and you know he's got a lot for the sport and all that. We know about all that, but why can't somebody come out and just finish?
I think that's the best fight for both of them, Joshua and Wilder. It's the best fight for them both.
Yeah.
Because neither of them two can probably beat anybody outside of the other one. Who can Wilder beat these days? I mean, he looked awful the other night. Looked shot to pieces. I'd make, and we've already spoke about Joshua, but I'd make, from what I saw for Wilder the other day, I'd make Joshua a pretty strong favourite in that fight. But can Joshua pull the trigger anymore? I don't know. It's not. Listen, it's lost its allure, hasn't it? You know, when Joshua beat Klitschko, that was the time to make that fight. That potentially would have been the biggest fight,
didn't they? They said Deontay Wilder fights the winner. Your words, Eddie. Your words.
Well, that would have been probably the biggest fight
ever
in the history of UK boxing. That if them two had met at that time,
for undisputed.
Yeah, but it's gone now. I'm not even bothered about that fight. But it probably makes sense for both of them two. Okay. So yeah, what Sam's saying's right, really.
Yeah, he has been good for British boxing, but I want Sam Jones to come out and say, but he should look at retiring because he can't hold the shot and he's not letting his hands go.
I thought you were getting Sam on here.
He sent me a couple of emails actually. He sent me an email and he didn't know that I knew where they were in an hotel lobby. Sat with all Klingons in boxing, and he was saying, "Let's do it now." And I were out on piss at the time, and I wanted to put back to him. But if he wants to come on here, Sam Jones, I'll torture him, man. Absolutely torture him. I've got the Sam Jones files here. Sam, you'd be tortured. All your fighters would leave you by John here. So you need to do a frotch and stay out my fucking way.
Have you ever met Sam before?
Hey?
You ever met Sam before?
I've seen him once at a show, yeah. Seen him once at a show. He's had Botox, hasn't he? Says that I can't complain about.
I'm not sure.
Can I?
Sam's a good guy. He's a nice
he's
fella.
All right, isn't he? He's from Motor Trade, just like myself. I want to finish off on Eubank Ben 2. Do we need it, really, September?
No.
Nobody's making any noise about it. I think they just put it out to test the public, and people are like, oh, not that again. Do you think?
You know what? I loved the first one. And I was dead against it because of the whole Conor Benn situation. But you know what? It was probably one of the best nights of boxing I've had in a long, long time. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, the rematch, I ain't got any interest in it really, because it's everything that you wanted to happen happened in the first one.
Yeah.
You know, this is just a money grab, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they've got a contract for it, but they've got a contract for the White Rhino against Elmer Fudd for a trilogy. So why don't they use that? I mean, my argument with boxing at the moment is this. They make these big fights or certain fights. They always put in 2-fight deals there. If the public should decide if it's a second fight. Now, they're putting these 2-fight deals out. It's for the promoter, because if it's a great fight, they're tied in for the second one. If it's a shit fight, the promoter never sticks to the contract. So stop going on about contracts. It's what they want. They run boxing. It's like Eddie's telling us this short weekend. Oh, they're all 50-50s. Well, why at bookies not giving evens? They're not fights because they're all 1 to 50 odds against and all that kind of thing, aren't they? They're not 50-50 fights that are on. You know, as most of them are odds on every show, aren't they? Apart from Chief Support and Main.
Yeah. But that's when a good promoter comes into his own, isn't it? They can convince you.
Platforms in the pockets, aren't they? That's how they do it.
They can convince you it's a 50-50. And that's why, you know, you can say whatever you want about Eddie, but he's very good at his job. Like I said, he could sell sand to the Arabs, couldn't he?
Well, Bricktop's doing it this morning, isn't he? On with Oscar Bevis, wherever the channel that's on. He's at IFL or Stomping Ground. He's there, Dylan White with his left hook, and he's Dylan White's hungry. This is his world title, and he wants to chase down a world title. He's coming again, and he's in camp. And Bricktop, please.
But just quickly there, Russ. So you said the fans will decide whether it's a rematch or not. Well, apparently they sold 50-odd thousand tickets yesterday for the Ben Eubank 2, so the fans are deciding.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. It's craziness, isn't it?
So it deserves a rematch, doesn't it, if it sells that quickly?
Well, I suppose in a way the first one were a good fight. So, but for me, I think it was a unanimous decision. The young Ben had a go against the bigger man. So let's see what weight they do it at and all that now.
Yeah, and listen, if Ben couldn't beat Eubank last time, he was absolutely cooked at the weight. He ain't going to do him again, you know, especially Conor Benn not on eggs, who's not put a dent in anyone for 4 years. You know, since he failed his drugs test, 2 of them, he's not put a dent in anyone for 4 years. So if he couldn't beat him last time, he ain't going to be able to beat him again.
Didn't he threaten you, Curt, on social media?
Who?
When you were
Conor Benn?
about it, did he threaten you? Had a bit of intense beef with him, or what it lapping lunch and meat?
No, I just, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
What? Didn't do anything wrong, did I? You know, just everyone knows my feelings on drug cheats. I think it's probably the lowest thing you can do in combat sport. You know, I'm dead against it, and it is what it is, isn't it? If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah, I want to ask you one last question before we go. We both like him. We both know him. Frankie Gavin, he fought in BKB at weekend. You fought him for the WBO in the Continental, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it was a split decision. People said you won. People said you won. You got the decision. I know you get on with him, and I know you'll always have a place in. He'll always be in your heart, won't he, Curt? Because you've been in ring and shared the moments with him. Well, it's sad to see him in that. For me, it were.
I messaged him yesterday, Russ, and said to him, "Don't ever do that again. So don't be messing about that bare knuckle stuff, mate." It was horrible to watch him. I mean, it within inside 30 seconds, and it didn't look right. He looked old, didn't he? And he is old. You know, he's way past it. And yeah, it was very sad to watch. I messaged him yesterday just saying that, listen, are you all right? You know, first and foremost. And he messaged me back saying, "Thanks for the message." He said, "I'm fine." He said, "It's just a different ball game, that BKB in it." I'm like, yeah, you don't need to be in that game. It's you know, all of them lot are off their head. They're all on steroids. They're all pumped up. You know, Frankie Gavin is probably the purest boxer this country's probably ever seen for years. That doesn't translate very well to bare knuckle boxing. Yeah, I didn't like watching it, and it was all over my social media and everything. And just to see him get kind of ragged about and punched about by someone who couldn't lace Frankie Gavin's gloves.
He never lost a round, did he? For quite a number of years as an amateur, didn't he? He just nobody could get near him, could they?
Gonna say he lost a few against me, Russ.
Only because you were headbutting him.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
You were blowing him, headbutting him, rubbing your head into his cut and his bruises, and rabbit punching him. You were kneeing him. I seen it. He'd never had a rough one like that before, had he?
That was all in the first round.
All right. Listen, Curt, as you take care, I'm going training now, but into Birmingham.
Top man, thanks for having me on, mate.
Listen, have a great day and give Adrian my best. All right, mate.
Top man. See you later, mate. Bye.
Well, that was the legendary Curtis Woodhouse, former Premier League footballer, British champion as well, boxer. How many people can say play for England under 21s, were involved in £1 million transfers between football clubs, played in Premier League, told Steve Bruce to F off and won a British title in like welterweight. So, a legend in my eyes. That's about it. Peace out. I'm off to get a pump on. Well, booyaka.